Fortunately, we've never been in a sticky situation. I don't ever want that to become a thing.
First time where you had someone come in to start managing things on your behalf, and how that went.
I think probably the biggest one recently, what I've learned over the last year is to come away from doing that and just realising that I'm fortunate enough now to have that support network around me in terms of employees. I still do that, but I've toned it down a bit, I suppose.
How have you found it working with family and like finding a balance there? What tips have you got? So how do you find recruitment?
Oh, it's so difficult. I hate it.
Kieran, welcome to Benevolent Business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And first thing, so Squiggle, you're a team of like, I think every time I hear about it, the team's growing. So
I want to say 17 or 18, something along those lines.
Amazing.
Just because of the nature of our business model, we tend to have people join, people leave.
Yeah.
Hopefully more join than leave, but just the business model and the concept. Sometimes people don't make it as such.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you hire quite quickly, and the process of learning if someone's sitting within the team is hire them and in time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people believe they can do it, and there is an opportunity to do very well in the way our business model works. But sometimes it just doesn't work out in terms of they're not used to it, because a lot of our consultants are self-employed. Yeah. So people move from being an employed model, go to self-employed and think, I can do that. I want to earn that amount of money on this, that and the other. But realise very quickly that you do still need, it's running a small business. So it's not, you've obviously got Squiggle, but then you've got all the consultants running their own little mini businesses underneath. Mm-hmm. So they need to still graft to be able to find clients to go and meet with and stuff. And sometimes people don't have that in them to be able to do that. That's the idea is that, hopefully we're getting better at our recruitment process with the consultants, being really, really strict. As much as we want to hire people and hire lots of people, is, okay, have you really got it in you to be able to go out there and network and build relationships and things? Yeah.
So even your glass is branded.
Yeah. Got to brand everything. A few of my friends joke and say, if they walk into the office, and they walk into the office, they're going to walk out with a Squiggle stamp on their head.
For the outro, we'll have a pillow fight together.
Yeah. Cute.
Okay, I think it'd be really valuable to dive into that. So you said like a lot of your, would you call them? Consultants.
Yeah.
So they're self-employed.
Yep.
Did you experiment with employed versus self-employed, and what led you to go down the route of self-employed?
I like the idea of one day having a hybrid, so you can be employed, and it'll be a different pay structure. For me, I did it right in the very beginning from just being able to afford to do it without taking the risks that needed. So now it's ultimately with the consultants, they've got to have a bit of skin in the game. So we both share that risk. So we pay for that risk. They are, in my opinion, obviously paid very well, but the reason why they're paid very well is because they are taking huge risks. There was a joke in the office that the other day about one of the admin staff supported the consultant doing the consultant's role, and I was like, does that mean I get half the commission or whatever it was, and half the fee share? And I'm like, no, it doesn't quite work like that, because whilst that's a nice amount of money, it's disproportionate to what you did. Whilst you did that task, you didn't take the necessary risks that consultant's done. Yeah. So therefore, it's not appropriate for you to be paid that same amount of commission. Does that make sense?
Completely, and I think that's a huge misconception, especially for people that have never started a business or been self-employed or anything, is like the amount of times you'll hear jokes or memes that surround how much work the employee does versus the business owner, and like the rewards against that. But then the whole thing is what the business owner's done in order for you to just be there doing your job. And so like that person in the office that's been part of the process and has been part of getting the client over the line. But the self-employed person started from day one of that risk and then has gone through the process of learning how to get to a point where a client is there ready to go, brilliant. And that is communicating to prospects, engaging with them, networking to build the relationships, making people aware, and then having the back and forth conversations for them to get to a point where they go, oh, you are the people that can help solve this for me, and you can, whether it's estate planning or wills, like you're the Squiggles who I'm going to choose. And obviously as the assistant, they've been, or the person that's behind the scenes, the admin that was part of getting it over the line, it's like, yeah, it's a fraction compared to the legwork that took to get it. And also It's not just that one client, it's how many clients did they have to meet with for that one person to go, yep.
And we do a lot of free stuff for clients. As part of prospecting or getting clients through the door, we do a lot of freebies, whether it's advice or maybe the odd will. Is that office person, that employed person, hasn't done that for free?
Yeah.
So a consultant might have spent 10, 20 hours doing something for nothing to then be paid for that 11th client, for example, or that 11th hour. So yeah, it's like you say, it goes back to the whole business owner concept and the graph that they've put in.
So how do you find recruitment?
Oh, so difficult. I hate it. It's literally it's my worst thing. The moment I can recruit someone to do recruitment, I cannot wait. And I kind of do it already at the moment. Our operations director does a lot of that. And it's because it's complete lottery. You can have the most amazing CV, which most of the time is probably written by ChatGPT now.
I'm recruiting at the moment, and
and you can just tell. And then the second thing, the interview, the person could just be absolutely talking rubbish for the whole 20 minutes, half an hour, however long the interview is. And until that person comes in, you're never going to know. And then if you have made a bad mistake, it's so hard to then get rid of a bad employee because all the different legislation and stuff like that. So I hate it. It's complete lottery. So yeah, I do spend most of the time actually when I do get dragged into an interview trying to put someone off joining us, because then if they're still interested, it must clearly be important to them.
That is a big lesson for me that I've had I've been on and off like hiring people for 6-7 years, and my first instinct was like try and paint this as the most beautiful journey they could be on, and like really shine the light on it of like all the positives and how great it's going to be as being part of my company. And years later now I'm like literally on where I'm recruiting again at the moment, the job role on the job ad, the first sentence is here's what sucks. And it's just a list. Literally it's like, read this list. If you keep reading, then obviously you're interested. But this list, I'm basically just saying, piss off. Like, you don't want to do this. Like, there's a lot that's difficult about like working for me and like with me on tasks. And I'm just basically, as you say, like I'm trying to put people off as much as possible, because then the people that come through are going to be far more ingrained in it.
That's it. Like I was chatting to an employee when they first started about the difference between working for us. We're quite a small company, all work for a big London law firm. And there is obviously benefits to both, but in my opinion, it's much better. Obviously, I'm biased to work for a small company where you're really, really valued, and perhaps maybe there's more opportunities to grow with the company. So yeah, there is certain benefits to both, and I think it's, for me, just being really open and transparent with, these are the problems. I get it that, say for example, if you want to be a director of Squiggle, it's going to take you a long time to get there potentially, because there is not that many director roles or partner roles in there. But at the same time, if you stick with us, then you could potentially even become an owner at one point or whatever. So who knows?
Yeah, and that's something that I've opened my eyes up to in the last couple of years, because in my first company, I wanted to own 100% of the company. I never wanted to give a single share away, and it was my baby that I was going to grow. Whereas now, I'm like, I don't want to own 100% of a company ever. No. I always want to have partners on board, and like that's something with me and Pink Panda is in recruiting people. I want to find people that will really enjoy it and then grow within the company and then get to a point where they can become a director and have like a stake in the company.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think the more people have skin in the game, the more they're going to care about it. And I'm very fortunate is that me and my partner, who's also one of our directors, were chatting the other day about this, is that we're so fortunate at the moment how passionate our team is about everything. Like, say there's a process problem or a client's upset or something like that, everyone's straight on it with solutions, trying to find out how to fix that client and how we can stop that error happening in the future. like apparently she brought something up in the office the other day, and then everyone straight away was like straight on the topic. Right, we could do this, we could do that, and I'm like, that's really cool because it just shows how passionate everyone is, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's got to be a fun thing to witness as well. Something you've built and seen people like that. You said your partner. That's something about the kind of culture of Squiggle is like it's very family oriented. Like it doesn't like everyone in the family work at Squiggle in some way or other.
Yeah, my eldest sister doesn't quite, but
all right, so there's one relation.
Yeah, there's one, and my dad doesn't.
Okay.
But yeah, my mum, my sister, and now very recently my partner. I think it's nice, and what I've been very strict on is making sure they do add value. Because I know that Anna's, one of her concerns when she come on board is, I don't want to come on board just because I'm your partner.
Yeah.
I want to actually bring value. I want to, you get these companies that set up and they just add their partner on just to get the matching salary or whatever it may be. Yeah. Whereas Anna was like, no, I don't want that, which is quite nice of her because it also costs us a lot less, is she has the salary to match what she was previously doing. She has near enough the job role that she was previously doing. So therefore, she's actually been brought on for her skill set rather than the fact she's my partner. The partner bit is just a bonus in that, or it also has its negatives, in that she can be trustworthy straight away in terms of you don't need to build that trust with someone. And obviously, normally with an employee, you build that trust over time. Whereas from day one, there's that trust immediately, which is quite nice. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about. Is yes, my sister and my mum have been recruited, but they add value for what they are worth. It's not just a job because they're family.
So how do you keep that balance between? Because like I over the years I've employed different friends. I've got family. My sister works for me, and like friends generally has always gone down the toilet of like how it worked, and it was terrible. And whereas my mum is starting to work for me as well, and like with that, my mum and my sister are like complete trust, and I think it's not always the healthiest, but like my sister and I, we could have a complete disagreement on something, and there could be some kind of like argument over something, but we would just I'm very comfortable to just say anything and just be like, look, here's like the way my brain works. All I want to focus on is what's wrong, and I can just list all of that to my sister, and it just come across really aggressive and mean.
Yeah.
But she can take all of that information in, and then 10 minutes later we can just be joking again, and she will work to resolve it, and she can like give back to me as well very comfortably. Whereas I've had it before where I communicate like I know I can come across very ruthless because I'm so focused on results, and all I care about getting is negative feedback, because then that's what I can improve on. So that's all I want. And I've had like all kinds of people like over the years, like people that work for me have just been like, oh, fuck you, see you later, and gone. But I'm curious, how have you found it working with family and like finding a balance there? And yeah, what tips have you got?
I think for me, creating boundaries and just being transparent. I am very much a people pleaser. Well, I like to think I'm a people pleaser. So communicating. So if mum mentions, she's upset the way that my sister spoke to her or something like that, I'll make sure, as horrible as it sounds, is sit down with my sister as an employee and say, right, the way you spoke to my mum isn't appropriate. Maybe that's how you talk in personal life, but perhaps you need to talk with a little bit more respect. Would you have spoken to so and so that? And also, and this is one of the things that's really important since my partner's come on board. She's very HR heavy. My partner is that actually now I'm being held accountable for that. So like if I'm going back to your point about the way that you can easily talk to your sister and say it how it is kind of thing, rather than beating around the bush, is that actually now I've learned to I still do that, but I've toned it down a bit, I suppose, because sometimes they're in a employee mindset, like where they're working for you, and like, well, no, I don't deserve to be spoken to like that. So I think creating those boundaries and just really heavy communicate, like overly communicate more than what you probably would do with an employee about how the way you're feeling. Like Jodie's in this constant tug of war between being a consultant and working in the office and being a director and whatever it may be. So it's about constant communication. Right, where do you want to go? What's next? And the same with mum. Like mum's having this argument with herself about wanting to support me as her son and support the business, but all she wants to retire. So it's like, right, okay, let's get you there. And whilst selfishly I want to keep her in the business because she does very well for us, I understand that's not right for her. And you do that with family or an employee. So I think for me, key is really heavy communication, more than what you normally probably would do. And try your best, whilst it's not always possible, is treat them as an employee, and how you would normally talk to them.
I'm curious, with your partner being involved in the business now and working for you, so maybe it's unique to me, but like I'm very obsessed with whatever I'm into. So like in the past with partners, they get like every detail about my business and like what I'm working on, what I'm frustrated, what my big ideas are, and they're there to get all the best of it, all the worst of it, and often like form a big support to me when I'm going through all the emotions and the roller coaster of it. I'm just like thinking, if I had a partner that then worked for me and was doing tasks, just then the idea that you have to manage them and be responsible for them, but then also going home at the end of the day and switching up, because I'm pretty much just like a workaholic.
Yeah.
So I just wake up and, well, so you and me both wake up, start thinking about work and doing work, and even when we're not working, we're still working, and even like if we're doing something fun, you're probably similar to me then, like like I find it very hard to be present, and I'm always, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always kind of thinking of like how something, like what's my idea, what am I solving, like at the back of my brain, what cogs are turning and solving something. And so to have and like for me, that's always been a hard thing, having a partner, hence why I'm single, but like right now, but having a partner is like, I'm so intense because I'm so obsessed. And so I would be sitting with them having a conversation, or we'd be hanging out or watching a movie, whatever, and my brain's off somewhere else, just like thinking about this, or that, like I'll just be, and I'll be like, and I'll grab my laptop and start working, and then suddenly I'm there with them and I'm just like, and they're like, should we grab some dinner? I'm like, yeah, sure. So what's it been like for you? And then how do you now balance it with your partner? Because I'm just thinking, like, I wouldn't be able to balance it.
Yes, I think you've got to be very, very self-aware. So I'm very strict. Well, my partner will probably disagree, but I do my best to make sure my phone's off, or not off, but like on silent over there. Yeah. And this is something that she's taught me probably in the last year, is that I'm obsessed of refreshing my emails. I have my emails on my phone and stuff like that.
Oh, God.
So I'm obsessed with every 10 minutes, or it used to be like, say, watching a movie of an evening, I'll just go on my phone to just refresh my emails to see what's there. None of it is ever urgent. Like, it's very rarely, a lot of the urgent stuff that now happens goes into someone other than me. So it's very rare that I'm pulled into something urgent. So therefore, I don't need to refresh my emails there and then. There is no need to do that. So for me, what I've learned over the last year is to come away from doing that, and just realising that I'm fortunate enough now to have that support network around me, in terms of employees and consultants, to be able to deal with that stuff for me. So I don't need to do that. And if it was really, really urgent, they would ring, because I don't get that many calls outside of work. So therefore, if it does ring, she understands that I need to answer it, and and just being really, really self-aware. But it's certainly been a learning curve. In terms of us talking, I mean, Anna's only been with us for 2 months now, so like 6 weeks. I would say we actually don't talk that much out of work at the moment, and we knew that it was going to be heavy at first. We thought it was going to be heavy at first because of what she's doing in the business. She's building a lot of policies and procedures and stuff. Kind of getting everything out of my brain from the last 7 years and putting it onto paper, so we can all be held accountable for what's in my head. So we thought it would be heavy, and it's actually been pretty chill so far. There is the odd time, but then there's the odd time during working hours that we'll then talk about personal stuff. Yeah. So I think it's just ensuring that you continue to consciously work on your relationship, which I believe that over time it will actually probably improve our relationship to a degree, because I'm consciously thinking, don't talk about work, don't talk about work. Find something to talk about, and then therefore you're actively always thinking about improving conversations with your partners, or thinking, oh, what should we do tonight, rather than just sit on our laptops.
What about the whole thing of just like, how was your day, and then telling each other about your day? And if you work at the same company, it's a conversation about work then.
We have about 10-15 minutes of that, I would say, of an evening, but that's because we do very different jobs. Yeah. So I don't tend to know what she's been doing. Yeah. There's some elements, of course, that will be the same, and so we won't really talk about that. But she'll talk, this happened today, or that happened today, or oh, this client was having a little groan, or this client was celebrating something. So I do hear good bits about the day still, and able to give my opinion on that. And sometimes it's interesting to know her side of things, where she's so different because she's from a charity background herself. So she brings a whole completely fresh perspective to things. So I actually feel like I am speaking to someone that doesn't work for Squiggle, even though they are.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which is
So she's doing a lot of things in terms of policies, procedures, you said, like taking the stuff out of your head and documenting it.
Yeah.
So are you at a point now, I assume with like 17 of you, where you're now taken out of some of the decisions of like how things are happening, and even maybe elements of growing the business you're not even necessarily involved in?
Yeah.
Talk me through that, because that's I've never got to that point in a business yet. So I've had it where I'm delegating actions and everything, and like in Pink Panda, I'm responsible for 50% of the tasks. 50% are done by others now, but all of the decisions ultimately come down to me, and overseeing everything comes down to me. And in my first company, I started to get to a point where I was going to need a manager to then start delegating my delegations. So I'm curious, from someone that's done it, like talk me through, maybe if you've got stories to go with it, just like what the first time where you had someone come in to start managing things on your behalf, and how that went.
I think probably the biggest one recently is Anna with finances, actually.
All right.
I'm very blasé on anything in terms of, let's do that. We'll work it out. We'll see what happens. Like even you calling me, it'll be all right. We'll see what happens. Whereas it gets to the point, like Squiggle, for example, is so much bigger than me now. Not that I'm directly responsible, but I do see that I am directly responsible for, say, 17 mortgages.
Weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. So whilst I'm not, obviously, because they're responsible for their own mortgages, I do feel that sense of responsibility. So therefore, I think with that, you need to make sure that you've put things in place. So we've never really had budgets before.
Yeah.
It's just like someone said to me, "Oh, should we do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, we'll work out how to pay for it later." Whereas now it's like, instead of, say, for example, you're trying to find a tenner, or trying to find £100, or even trying to find £1,000, which work a little bit harder, you can do that. We're getting to a point where it's now, right, we need to find a spare 10,000, a spare 30,000, a spare 20,000. That's big numbers. Well, for me, it is certainly big numbers, and that's not something that I ever want to get. Fortunately, we've never been in a sticky situation. Touch wood. But I don't ever want that to become a thing by me just being blasé. Yeah, let's do that and see what happens. So one of Anna's roles coming in is managing budgets. So therefore now, even though I'm a director and 100% shareholder at the moment, is if I want to go and spend £1,000, I have to run it past Anna.
Oh, okay. I like this.
So because Anna's creating budgets, right? Yeah. This is how much we're allowed to spend this month on that, this month on that. So she's done all that and creating procedures and processes around kind of spending. Because I am very much, as my accountant is forever telling me off, a spendaholic. I'll just spend everything. So therefore, let's have some budgets in place. We don't need to spend that, for example. Like one of the things, we were getting a load of leads in from another company, and we were spending a fortune contacting them. We're using third-party companies and stuff. Actually, when we evaluated that process, we were massively loss-making. So as much as we were getting these leads for free, the process of contacting them all, because there were so many of them, was costing us a fortune. So therefore, actually, and we weren't converting any of them because they weren't the greatest quality of leads. There's no point us even having the leads then. So therefore, I'm saying no to, well, we're not saying no, we've just worked out a better way to do it, but saying no to like 500 leads a quarter, 500 booked appointments or clients a quarter, we're saying no to it or doing it a different way. So that was really hard. But actually, with Anna's there to review that process and how we're spending that budget, like, actually, that's a good decision for the business. So yeah, I think it's helping, whilst it's painful. Like someone asked me, can I sign up for this? It's £10 a month or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I think so. But I think we should just double check that. And now, fortunately, Anna's like, Kieran, that kind of stuff, you don't really need to check that with me. But yeah, it's certainly been a learning curve for me to check that, but I know it's for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So whilst I can't spend my own money, I know it's a good thing for the business.
I'm going to pause the conversation for a moment because I'm going to tell you about one of our sponsors. And actually, this is a really cool story and quite a shocking one, actually. So let's dive into this. IT Manager Services, got talking to Tom. So I want to tell you this story of one of his clients that was an accountancy franchise, that it turned out that their cyber security insurance was actually void because of what their IT provider, their previous one, was doing, or rather not doing. It's definitely something that if you're running a business, you want to watch out for. So the problem was they weren't receiving the quality of service that they were expecting or were promised. So when Tom first met them, they were unhappy with their provider, just through certain things such as they were supposed to be getting all of their software and all of their activity backed up. Turns out it wasn't actually being backed up. They were supposed to have all of the servers moved over to the cloud. That hadn't happened. So you can imagine, big problem. They were annoyed, frustrated, hence why they've called Tom in. So getting started with IT Manager Services, Tom just made sure to get on top of everything. Upgraded all the servers to the cloud, made sure everybody had their own license and account for privacy. So I was using Microsoft, but they had to make sure that every single staff member had their own license, so they weren't accessing each other's accounts and emails and whatnot, because the previous company hadn't looked after that, and it was just a key problem that they need to solve that didn't even realize they had. But also gradually started building more security and automations within their systems that they were using, just to make things more efficient for them. But it was in this part that they actually discovered a key problem was their cybersecurity. Turns out it was actually completely void because they didn't meet the due diligence of all the requirements of what they need to have in place for their IT. So now, as a result, of course, their cyber insurance is covering them and they're fully compliant with it. They're now way more efficient in their day-to-day practice and procedures just because of the automations that have been put in place on their systems. And this is all something that Tom and the team at IT Manager Services have done for many of their clients. So what I'd recommend, just for peace of mind, give IT Manager Services a call.
You can't be that bad with spending though if you got to a point where there's like 17 people in the company.
Well, yeah. But I think what happens is I just go and try and see a load of more clients myself, and I'm very much like workaholic, so brilliant. I've committed to an extra couple of £1,000 this month or whatever it may be. I've then, instead of leaving work at 5 o'clock, I've left work at 7 o'clock after ringing a load of introducers or financial advisors and say, "Oh, have you got any clients that you want me to see?" To then try and make that money. I've never been one to cut back. I've always been one to, right, how can we make more money? It's never cutting back on expenditure.
Yeah.
It's let's make some more money.
Okay.
So whereas now it's finding a balance between the two.
Oh, I'm fascinated by this because this is like similar to you. I've just kind of like thrown money at things and been like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that, and work out. But I've always, like in a garden company, I just was so frugal with money that things could come along that were even something that was like 10 grand would just be like, yeah, whatever. Like if I want to do it, I want to do it, and it's not a problem. And if it's a piece of equipment we need, if it's gonna help the company, sure. And I was happy to go without. I was never really fussed about me earning money. It was like as long as the company's doing well. And well, that's because I could put everything into the company, mainly of what, like I don't want stuff. So everything I wanted was to do with the company. But that's something that I've looked at more as I've got older. I'm like, I really need to step away from financial decisions because it's like I just know that what I'm good. I'm not a finance director, and I should never be one. And trying to like take myself away from that. So it's interesting that you've now done that and you're going through it, because that's definitely like a key thing that I need to work on. But that's so where I said my mum started working for me, so she started doing all my bookkeeping.
Yep.
And like going through that process. And so I like the idea that eventually it'll get to a point where she knows the finances better than me and she can guide me. Like she's worked in banking for years, so she'd be much more qualified to just kind of look at assigning budgets and telling me to stop spending money here and
start spending it here or whatever. Yeah, because I'm very fortunate that, like I say, we've never slipped up.
Yeah, neither.
But where we haven't been able to pay a bill. But if I did ever slip up now, that's going to be incredibly difficult to recover from.
There's bigger consequences, and there's other people's lives involved. As you say, there's mortgages and there's families involved in it now.
Yeah, so therefore we need to be more sensible in terms of, no, Kieran can't just say yes off the cuff there. We need to, okay, right, let's have a look at the budget. How much we got? Yes, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We can do that.
So talking of big spending, big investing, your own system app.
Yep.
Well, how much have you invested on that?
I want to say it's around the £200,000 mark plus, something like that. I mean, if you take into account my time and employee time and stuff, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that. But yeah, something along those lines. So yeah, our whole ecosystem, I suppose, which is it's been very good for our business. I wouldn't say it was necessarily needed to be that scale. It's just kind of spiraled, which is why probably Anna coming in at this with the whole budgets is a good time, because we now need to get to a point where we just stabilise that system, let's stop adding features to a degree, and let's get it paying for itself to a degree. So it's all about streamlining processes. We're very much a volume business, as much as we deal with really high net worth estates. There's not many people that kind of keep buying wills and keep buying the same thing. It's normally you maybe 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, perhaps maybe you update your will. So therefore we've got to keep seeing new clients, and we handle a lot of data. So it's about storing that data securely, compliantly, being able to manage that amount of data as well. I've no idea how many clients we've got on the system now, but probably 15,000, something along those lines. So being able to manage all that, and the families and the beneficiaries and like executors, all that data being held securely. So we created our whole kind of ecosystem to manage it, right from when a client inquires right to when they pass away and beyond. So there is lots of existing systems in the industry that do bits of that, but not one that does it all. So what we've done is done most of it internally, but those bits that either we can't afford to at the moment, or we don't want to because it needs a silly amount of investment, is we've then plugged into. So I described it when we first started building it as the glue between lots of different systems, but then gradually we've started to replace some of the ones that we've kind of bought in and try and build our own. It's a whole kind of ecosystem, I suppose. It's the best way of describing it.
So what do you think it was uniquely about you and Squiggle that saw these different softwares and thought just connecting them, there needs to be that glue between them? Why? What is it unique about you? Do you think that has implemented that when there's, like you described when it was all about employment and all these larger firms that people go work with in the city? Why haven't they? And what is it about you?
I think for me, our industry is very archaic. So, I mean, there's lots of people that I meet with still now in our industry, and I'm like, right, okay, so when you go and meet with a client, how do you take instruction from a client? How do you take details? Yeah, paper and pen. I'm like, what? So then what do? You go back to the office, oh yeah, and then we scan it in, or I then type it out onto my system. Then I copied it from my accounting system to my drafting system to this system to that system, and I'm like, no, I'm just not up for that life. Unfortunately, a lot of the industry are still doing it like that.
Wow.
There are some firms that have got halfway there, where again they've got all these systems but not the glue in between, and that's a really good. Like that's still further forward than a lot of people. Whereas I'm incredibly lazy and didn't like the idea of any double data entry. So I don't like the point of copying it from say Xero, our accounting software, to our CRM software. I don't want you to have to type in Mr. Smith's name again over here and put his email address in over here. I want it just to go over automatically. And like checks being sent in the post and stuff, I'm just not up for that. I think there's a lot of organisations out there, and that's why the cost of acquisition for a client in a solicitor's firm, I remember meeting a solicitor once, and he goes, yeah, just to open a file, do no work, but just to open a file is £250. So that's the minimum you need to charge just to open a file before you've actually done any work. He goes, yeah. And that's because to pay, say, a paralegal to copy it from that system to that system to that system, and then the communications with the client in between that with emails or whatever is £250. So I was like, well, hang on, if we could just press a button, it does all of that for you, then yes, whilst the systems cost us a fortune, over time and volume, it should pay for itself, is the premise behind it. And I just think people are, organisations, like the large companies, they are too, I mean, we've struggled with it at the moment, they're too entrenched with their current ways and their processes to pivot and change those. It's too much red tape they've got to go through.
That's the advantage of a smaller business and small companies. You are far more agile and you can just make decisions quickly. And as you know, like if you've got to spend some money, where you haven't got to go through all these processes.
Yeah.
And if you've got an idea, you can experiment with it and play around with it. You haven't got to have a meeting about a meeting, to plan the meeting,
Yeah,
to see
exactly.
if the idea is worth discussing in a meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, we've because whilst we're no means big at all, but in terms of because we already were a growing business and already established, and moving from an old CRM system to a new one.
Oh, hello. There's a dog.
Moving from an old CRM system to our new one was incredibly difficult already. Because we had so many clients that we were trying to manage, and so therefore we were quickly just trying to replicate our old system, and we realised we had made a mistake because we've just copied our old one. So there was a lot of rework that we've done, some mistakes that we've done in our own building our own system, because we've just tried to copy what we've done previously. Whereas actually what we need to do with parts of it is just go completely back to the drawing board. What do we want it to look like? Let's not try and copy our old system. Let's go from the ground up. How should it work? So there has been a lot of rework as we've been learning.
I have a bunch of like guiding principles, just for my life, like for any business I have. It's literally the first tab of my system is my guiding principles, and one of them I call it walk the factory line.
Yeah.
So I just imagine everything. So like in Pink Panda or whatever business I'm working on, is just I picture it as a factory, and a new prospect or a new client walks in, and they go through this process, and out they walk from the factory with their whatever the service is or the product is. So in Pink Panda's example, it's if they've got a content portfolio, if it's a marketing strategy, or in your example, they've got their will. But I just always think of my role in running the business is walk the factory line and just delete parts.
Yeah.
Delete, until the point I've deleted too much that I have to start putting things back in because we've missed bits. But the whole thing is by doing that, you see what's wasted, and you can see how you can get from, all it is get from walking in and walking out. You essentially just want them to do it in one pace.
Yeah.
And it's how can we do that, and how can we get as close to that as possible? And then in bringing on a team is having those guiding principles and being like, this is how we do everything. And that's one of the guiding principles. So as a team member, you've got autonomy to walk your own factory line and look at other people's and be like, oh, you could just cut off time there by doing this. And it's like, I'm always having to get this information from you in order to do my bit.
Yeah.
If we could do something that automates that, or if we do some way, like even if my job role kind of adjusts slightly with yours, then we don't have to have this back and forth that's so complicated. And that's what I want to have in team members, is they've got that autonomy to just break things and mold things, to walk the factory line and make it more efficient, because things can get so inefficient very quickly as soon as you start building a team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we've had to completely rework it. And we initially hard-coded that whole factory line, hard-coded that into our software. But then what we realised is that when we need to change it and make those tweaks, we had to redevelop the whole software. So now what we've done is made our factory line customizable. So if we completely pivoted because of legislation changes or new staff members or new team structure, we can just go into our system and change it, and it's all completely customizable in our system. And the good thing is potentially when we go to sell our software, if ABC will writers or does it completely different to us, they can move that factory line around however they want.
And that must be something in your industry where like every 6 months, every 12 months, you have to like go back to the drawing board because of new laws, new legislation. Yeah.
And also changing patterns with people's behaviours. You have to, and then the other aspect is we have to revisit things depending on where we get our clients from. So if we get our clients from a financial advisor, they might be really high net worth clients, but then we might get a client from a charity who just want to do a free will because they want to donate loads of money to the charity. The type of client is very different, and therefore perhaps maybe the psychology of what they're expecting is much like very different.
So in all like this system and everything, this system seems very exciting and like a lot of money well spent, or hopefully will become in the end. At the moment it's a money pit, but hopefully something that will turn into an absolute gold mine.
We've seen it save, I would say probably on average it saves us about an hour, maybe 2 hours per client at the moment.
Oh wow, and yours is fast churn, you need to do numbers, so that's hugely valuable. So even if you keep scaling your own business,
that's when
it's big enough, like that pays for itself anyway, regardless if any other company. I suppose the problem you've got, if companies are very old fashioned and slow to move, going, here's this revolutionary new software, they're going to go, yeah, but we do it like this and we've always done it like this. Yeah, but this will save you time. Yeah, but we've always done it like this. Like, you're going to be up against that. Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why we've made our factory line, using your analogy, is completely customizable. Okay, we'll save you time and we'll do it how you want to do it. Is the
We
idea.
like to do it with pen and paper.
Well, yeah, we can't do that one.
Chisel it in stone.
Yeah, exactly. So, which unfortunately you are kind of fighting with at the moment.
But I think it's one of those things where as soon as other companies start going, like if you start to see incredible results from it, other companies are soon going to, in your fields that are analysing their competitors, are going to start thinking, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
And then they're just going to be like, well, that's how you're doing it. Well, gimme. And you're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you can pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So give me an example. Like that seems like money well invested and something you've worked towards for a long time that's still in development. What's an example where you'd say any part of business, you kind of alluded to it, but where you've really spent money poorly or invested money poorly? And not to say that, like, I think, like, I've done stupid things with money, but I've always looked back and gone, there was a key lesson there. And that's what's valuable about it, as long as you avoid it in future again. But you kind of alluded where you was doing things where you was paying for, it's like paying for leads or paying for like bulk leads and investigating and realising they're actually a loss. But have you got any other examples where just business in general where you've gone, that was a dumb way to spend money?
I think it's more where I've got ahead of myself and spent money when I'm not ready to. So in terms of like we built this whole online platform, squiggle.me, so you can go online and write your own will online and power of attorney online. And that has been launched and you can go online on squiggle.me and do that. But we had enough money just about to build the thing, but not to market it. Now, anything that's done online, you have to throw a silly amount of money at it, AdWords and Facebook ads and stuff, to be able to get it to market. And we didn't have that money. So brilliant, I built this thing and it's lovely and it looks great on the website, but I haven't got any money to get it in front of a client. Whereas our face-to-face consultancy, which was and is still doing really well, I completely forgot about that for 2 years of the business's life while I focused on building this online platform. Whereas actually, if I'd not spent that money on my consultancy, which was already earning me money and doing very well, I potentially would be 2 years ahead than I currently am, and potentially even more because I'd have thrown that money that I threw into this. So I wouldn't say it's a bad decision. It's nice that I've got that online platform there, and one day I'll have the spare cash to throw it and get it to really generate it lots of interest and stuff. But I would say, I run before I walked to a degree, and probably diverted my attention away when I didn't need to. And I do that with everything. So you say about keep alluding back to this factory line, is that we have that for clients, but there's other avenues that I want to do that for, is that we've got our consultant journey. So that's onboarding new consultants, which we have. It's not a franchise, but it's very similar to a franchise model. Is that people use our brand and our infrastructure and our compliance and support, but ultimately are running their own little mini business. I want to have an onboarding and training structure to that. So we have built a Squiggle Academy to onboard consultants and take them through that journey. But again, I'm trying to invest in that, but I'm also trying to invest in something else. And so I think that's my biggest thing. And that's, again, goes back to why Anna's so integral to my business, is that it's going to keep you aligned. Right, this is the plan for the next 2 years. No matter what bells and whistles come knocking on the door and it looks an amazing thing, let's carry on doing this.
I'm always bad with that with marketing or like any opportunity to scale and grow quick, like anything that comes along. And especially like other business ventures where I'm like, oh, look, shiny new object.
Yeah.
Someone wants to start a business. And then I'm like, oh, actually, because I think like at one point early on in my early 20s, I had like 2 or 3 businesses I was trying to build and run, and it was just like a dumb idea. And then it was only years later, like now I'm at a point where it's like, I have a very narrow set of skills that I'm very good at, and there's a whole list of things I'm really bad at. And it was a problem trying to have different businesses when I was younger, because I was trying to do lots of different things with different businesses, whereas I didn't realise what my skill set was, and I was doing everything in like, especially in like the garden company, I was doing everything. Whereas now, it's like in Pink Panda, I'm honing it in to try and narrow it down to the things that I'm good at. And then like the other businesses I'm involved in, I'm only doing the things that I'm good at. So it takes very little of my time, very little of my energy, because it's just naturally what I can do.
Yeah.
And all the things that I suck at, I'm not doing because other people are doing it.
Yeah.
And it's much better way.
Yeah, well, this is it, and that's exactly what I try to do. Is anything that I'm not good at or I don't like doing, I'll try and get someone to do it.
Yeah.
So I literally, and then I do the same with the staff. If there's a particular, say, an admin staff that doesn't like doing that, Obviously not straight away, but when we can afford to, brilliant, we'll get someone in to take that off you, so they enjoy doing that. And then eventually everyone loves life and is only doing what they really enjoy and they're good at. So yeah.
So you've got Squiggle.me, Squiggle Academy, the Squiggle system that you're building.
Yeah. Well, which is over the next couple of months is actually being rebranded and being moved into a separate company because we're going to be licensing it out to our competitors. So
Why are you licensing it to Squiggle?
Because Squiggle is effectively the system's first client.
Yeah.
So to have it as Squiggle, to then rent it to ABC solicitors aren't going to want to use it because it's
Squiggle.
Because we're effectively a competitor.
Yeah.
So move it into a separate company, separate board of directors, and a separate business plan, I suppose. And then Squiggle will be client number one, and we'll go and kind of give it to others.
So with all of these investments and all these systems and whatnot you've been growing on, has Squiggle just been bootstrapped the whole time, or have you taken on investors to fund it?
No, that's one of the reasons why I stopped pushing money into Squiggle.me, the online platform, and focused back onto Squiggle Consult, is because that's what's earning money, that's what's doing well, and I needed it to fund these other things. So therefore, that's why I threw everything into that. So it's been a mix of me investing, which I don't have anything, so pretty much me just working more. A mix of debt, so banks support you and stuff, which is very hard in the first few years, but when you actually prove yourself after 3 or 4 years, then the banks are more generous to help you out, and that's about it really. So yeah, there's no investors at the moment. I did look to get investors when I was launching Squiggle.me, and then COVID hit and everyone just got a bit nervous. So that's one of the demises of Squiggle.me in terms of why I just kind of cut my losses and just launched it, even though I had no money to get it out in front of people, and then just carried on back onto the consultancy and thought, right, I'm not getting distracted by this now.
Yeah, that's a world I haven't trodden much into in terms of, so like debt, the only debt that my company's essentially taken, apart from like little bits here and there, is like in terms of like actual debt I consider, is just a bounce back loan, taking 15 grand from the bank and then and that was like, didn't need it, just took it because it was available, and just had it sat there, and then was like, oh, don't need this, 12 months later, haven't used it. Pay it back, yeah. But and there's things where, because before I was going to do like this 100 grand project on just like this PR campaign to grow the company. Essentially, it was like, I want people queuing at this door to work at this company, and I want a long queue. And I was just like, in my head, just pulled out 100 grand and was like, let's put together a project and let's start having conversations about getting the money. Fortunately, I never went forward with it because I completely changed what I was doing with the garden company and like reduced it down and made it more of a lifestyle business at that point. But it's something like, I look at Pink Panda with what I want to do, and like other companies, the next companies I want to build, I'm like, straight away, I'll just, when I found it, I'll found it with people. Yeah. And one of those people will be the financial backing, or it'll be investors. But there's something that I like, just my brain, I know good debt and bad debt, but my brain just like feels scared of it. And like I had someone recently, a couple of days ago, literally like offered like, are you looking for investment? Like, I've got money here and I like you, and depending on what your plans are, like, pitch me something, and like I'm keen to give you money, and I'm like,
See, I've never had experience with investment, but the only thing that when I was looking for investment, I got warned a few times, is when you do start to get investment, those investors want blood, and whilst you haven't got the monthly repayments to think about, you have got monthly presentations or emails or calls with those investors to tell them why you've done this, why you've done that, and when you go for VC funding, where you get big boy money kind of thing, they want to keep giving you money. So once you take the first bit, they're like, right, here's another million, here's another million, but the idea is that's completely diluting you, so that you end up with hardly any of your company left, and also diluting your decision-making process as well. So then you end up at a point where you're in a company that you don't actually even like anymore. So I am acutely nervous of that as well, which is why I've gone down kind of trying to self-fund. And it goes back to where I want to go with Squiggle in terms of creating those conveyor belts as such. Those factory lines is, I've got my client one, and that's pretty much down to a T. We really look after clients. I like to think they're at the forefront of everything we do, So now let's try and do that with consultants as well, to onboard consultants, and then the same with our introducers as well.
Right, I'm interrupting this conversation just because I want to talk to you about one of the sponsors, which I love and get to use every week of my life, and that is Dragon Co-working. This podcast is sponsored by Dragon, and it's also recorded here mostly, depending where the guest is. And I just want to tell you the story of why I work at Dragon. Now, I knew of Dragon like a couple of years before I started working here, and in my first company was like, oh, I love this place. Wouldn't it be cool to one day be working here and have an office and whatnot? And sure enough, when I started Pink Panda, I joined Dragon. Just one, because of the culture just drew me in. The type of people that are here, the camaraderie of it, the culture of it just really drew me in. So a great place to work. But there's two key things that it's helped me with. One is loneliness. Like as a solo founder, when I started Pink Panda just being completely on my own, it helped to come to a place where you're not like, obviously you haven't got a clock in and clock out, it's not a job, but like I'm running my business and having a co-working space. But the key thing was having people I could interact with on a regular basis and actually build like a sense of a community. Like especially like come lunchtime, you're sitting around with a whole group of people, and then you've got people to like work with, collaborate and pass ideas between. Which leads me on to the second benefit, and that was problem solving. So I actually had an issue with a piece of content I was producing, and it was on the audio, and I just wasn't sure how to fix it. And thought, surely someone here knows. And sure enough, by the time I asked 3 or 4 people, someone was actually like, oh yeah, I know a way that you can fix that audio problem. Boom, done, they fixed it for me. So that is a huge benefit. That just instantly made it worthwhile being here, like from a financial perspective. So that's Dragon Co-working. If you want to experience Dragon for yourself, come along, you can have a day pass and experience it for yourself. Back to the podcast.
Now those 3 systems, and you've got something just growing itself.
Well, yeah, it's easy when you say it like that.
Yeah. In simple terms, it's simple.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what building a company is, just build an ecosystem that brings in the clients you want, brings in the team you want, and introduces the partners you want, and just refine that, and then have great aftercare. So once a team member's on board, they're the way that you look after them once they're on board. Same with clients, once they're there, the way you look after them once they're on board. Like now all of that. Although, I mean, your challenge in your business model is that it's just those one-off projects. There's no reoccurring thing.
Yeah, but we are trying to change that to a degree in terms of the industry itself is very transactional. So it's like, here's your will, see you in 20 years maybe. And what happens in that 20 years, that person forgets about the firm they went to and goes somewhere else. Whereas actually we've been working on it this morning is an anniversary system that we're bringing in. So we'll celebrate birthdays, we'll celebrate, say, religious holidays that particular person may be following, and anniversaries of their estate planning. So we'll re-engage every year. It's been a year since you wrote your will. How are you doing? Is there any updates you want to make?
Have you fallen out of anyone in the family?
Yeah, have you fallen out of anyone? And then keep re-engaging. Find reasons to re-engage with your clients, which the legal industry is just useless at. It's completely transactional. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So it's not transactional. So we will keep getting more business.
January 2nd, just every January 2nd. Have you fallen out?
Yeah.
Have you fallen out of anyone over Christmas?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, there's a long list.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't get me that present I wanted.
Yeah, and just stick everyone around the around the table at Christmas dinner, and like the arguments that break out there. This is like the most popular time of year to get divorced and stuff in January because of Christmas. So.
Probably, yeah. So.
Wills, business owners. So, what are business owners getting wrong about death?
I don't think anyone thinks about it, or they want to hide away from it. Actually, a lot of business owners that do come to us are the ones that are slightly proactive and do come to us. They want to. They come to us with the idea, I want to protect my business. I want to protect this. This is my baby. Blah blah blah. And then you're like, okay, why are you doing that? Well, because I want an income, and I like to have freedom. I was like, okay, so why do you want that income and freedom? To support my family, because I want to go on nice holidays and things. Okay, so your family are the most important, then, not the business. So let's do a will to protect you and your family first and foremost. Of course, we then cover the business at the same time, but a lot of people come to us because they want to protect their business, and it's like, remember your why. Why are you doing that business? Which often people forget and get distracted by when we say, okay, let's look after your personal affairs first. No, business. I'm like, yeah, but the why is you're doing your business. Let's roll it back a bit. And the other is continuity. It's not just on death, but on loss of capacity as well. business owners tend to forget, right, okay, so if you had an accident on the way into work, who's paying the wages, who's paying the suppliers, who's unlocking the doors, and there's no continuity plan. So if you got knocked over, who's doing all those things, and people don't put planning in place. Yeah, brilliant, a will, great, you've sorted out, if you die, who's getting it all, but who's getting it from there to there. In that probate process, which happens when everyone dies, who's dealing with stuff, who's paying the wages. So it's making those continuity plans, which a lot of business owners forget about. Because if your business is closed for one day, 1 week, clients are going to start noticing.
Yeah.
And when someone dies, things don't happen quickly unless you put plans in place for it.
Okay. So I've started my business. When do I need a will?
Straight away.
Straight away?
Yeah. When you're 18, everyone needs to get a will.
What?
Yeah.
Oops.
Because everyone's got assets. Everyone's got assets. So, and if you've got children, even more so, because your biggest asset is your children.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, this is one of my biggest bugbears in society at the moment. Society is, I mean, you've nailed it. What society's impression is, I need a will. No, you need a advice. Because advice will tell you, actually, it's not just a will that you need. You need a shareholders agreement, you need a cross-option agreement, you need a will, you need powers of attorney, you need X, you need Y, you need Z. So I think is about, actually, let's go and have a chat about what you need at this stage. Obviously, you can't put it all in place from day one because you haven't got a spare 20 grand to put everything in place when you first start a business. But yeah, it's just getting you on that ladder of protecting yourself from those different eventualities.
Is that what I need? 20 grand?
Well, no, if you was to really go belt and braces and protect every single eventuality,
Okay.
you would be looking at those kind of figures.
Yeah.
But naturally, it's not worth spending 20 grand to protect £1,000. For example, if that's what your business is worth, there's no point doing that. That's why, again, on the re-engagement stuff that I was just talking about, is that, okay, this year you might just put a will in place, basic will, just to point everything in the right direction. Next year you might want to put some continuity cover in because you're getting a little bit bigger and the business is bigger than you, for example. Like, for example, if I died, if I didn't have continuity cover in place for all these different eventualities, we're looking after the will of 10,000 people. So where are those 10,000 wills being looked after? Who's looking after them if I die? So therefore you need to put those things in place.
What about if my company runs itself? So what if, like, I could just go off for 6 months and the company's still running itself and everything? Does that make the need for a continuity plan and will redundant, or is it? I mean, it doesn't make a will redundant because it's still, if I own it, what happens when you die? Who gets it? But
it might run itself, but there could be eventualities where things happen that need your decision. And those, if you died, the shares need to be transferred to someone else. If the executors are responsible for the shares, they're responsible for hiring and firing directors. So then what happens if there's no director in place? Well, company law legislation says there needs to be a director in place. So who's appointing those directors?
Okay. So what should someone do? Let's just theoretically pick a random character out of thin air. Let's say it's a guy that's like 28, has got a couple different businesses, also investments that pretty much they only have access to, that they know about. So shares in a public company, private investments in startups, director in 2 companies, and they haven't got a will in place. So they're single, this theoretical person.
So I'd suggest, first of all, documenting everything securely somewhere.
Yeah.
So a guide to where everything is, how
literally,
to access
like,
it.
Here's my assets.
Yeah.
And it's a list.
Yeah,
Right.
have a list of all your assets. And how to access said assets. For example, if you've got cryptocurrency.
Oh, at that.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Exactly. So if you've forgotten about it, your executors or your family or trusted people are going to forget about it.
Yeah.
And we've
Not
all
to mention
heard
the password.
we've all heard horror stories about people losing cryptocurrency or forgetting where their passwords are kept for it.
Yep.
So keeping all that somewhere secure. And allowing a trusted person to access it, but not access it too soon because you don't want them to take it off you.
Yeah.
Especially crypto, for example. So that's one thing, is documenting it. Then you've got documenting where you want it to go. So that you do with a will. Who's going to act on those things? So you may want it to go to your nieces and nephews, for example. but who's going to make it go to your nieces and nephews? So that's known as an executor. So you need to appoint one of those. So that's that. So you've got somewhere to document it, then your will. Now you want to make sure that someone can run things for you if you got hit by a bus. Okay, so because a will is only there for when you die. You could just be in a coma, for example. So you're still alive, but you still can't make decisions. And if you can't make decisions, the Court of Protection, the government effectively will appoint a person to manage your finances and make decisions for you. That's usually a solicitor, and that solicitor is taking money out of your bank account to pay himself for managing your finances. And perhaps they don't know nothing about you, don't know how you like running your businesses, and don't have access to that big long list that you've made of where everything is. So therefore you need to appoint someone to do that. So that's under what's called a power of attorney. There's 3 types of power of attorney you can do as a business owner. One is for your personal property and finances, one is for your health, and one is for your business. So that's a trusted person to look after your affairs should you lose your marbles or be in a coma or something like that. So that's a good starting point. You've then got the rules to the I call it the rules to the game. So imagine playing a game of football. I don't know if you're into football, but I'm certainly not, but you'll get the analogy. Without any rules. So not knowing what the rules are, do you have to score in that goal or this goal? Are you allowed to go outside of the white lines? All those. Imagine playing that without any rules. That's effectively what you're doing in business. So how do you know you're allowed to pay the bills without having to run it past your sister or your accountant or whoever? Who's telling you you're allowed to do that? There are no rules other than what's in standard articles of association, which cover the same if you're running a little business making cushion covers in your kitchen or you're running Tesco's. It's the same articles of association which Companies House give you, unless you write your own, which often are created alongside what's called a shareholders agreement, which is the rules to the game, okay, of running that particular business. So, for example, I could say that any director is allowed to make a decision up to £5,000, but if they make more than that, then they need to run it past the other directors or run it past the shareholders or the investors. If you're getting investment on from someone, they will insist you get a shareholders agreement. Yeah. Because they don't want you running off with their money.
See that, like, going back to the subject of investors and everything, that is one of the main reasons why I like the idea of having an investor, like in Pink Panda right now, is even taking on a small amount of money that's like, I don't really need it. And like, but the whole thing of having a relationship with someone that's far more experienced in business, that's then got skin in the game of your company, where all those sorts of things that you're talking about are all going to be in place. The kind of thing that I'm like, oh, well, it's just me, and it's like, can I be bothered? And it's like, I'll put it on the to-do list, but it's down the bottom.
Yep.
Whereas having an investor come on board, it's going to be one of those things where that becomes, and I'm like, I know full well that it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And the obsessive part of my brain that's focused on, or like, well, everyone calls me autistic and ADHD, but like that part of my brain where it's like, here's the things I love that I want to focus on. Here's the things that I'm not really that fussed about. It stays down there. Whereas if I take on an investor, I know full well they can write shareholders agreement, and that will then tie into like personal protection, which then ties into the will, which then turns, everything needs to be documented.
Yeah.
Because I love doing things for the company. Like I love creating organisational charts and building out all of the tasks there and looking at what it looks like, but then having something for my own personal life.
But does it need to be done yet? And that's the conversation that I have with a lot of clients, is that they want to do it all, for example. Yeah. And I remember having a chat with someone, a friend of a friend, who wouldn't launch their business until they had these glossy brochures and they had this looking there and their socials look glossy. And like, just go and get your first client. Yeah, but I can't do that because I haven't got a logo yet. So they don't care about your logo. They just want to know if you can deliver the service that you're saying you're going to deliver. Yeah. So tell them you can deliver it and go and deliver it. You then earn yourself £100 or whatever you're earning, and then do the same 5 more times. Then you've got enough to maybe get yourself a name or a logo. Yeah. You don't need to have all your ducks in a row straight away. Just go and take action, and then you gradually, like for example, we didn't have a policy or procedure written down, documented until last year. And we've got to a point, by that point we had like 10,000 clients without even one documented procedure. So it's only now that we're actually starting to document that. because for us it was just about getting cash in the door, clients in the door, and getting launched, and then you gradually put those things in place. You'll never launch, and you'll never do.
Yeah, when I started Pink Panda, like literally I had a deadline. Well, you're in BNI, you know the whole world. So like I was gonna renew in BNI, but I wanted to renew with like what Pink Panda is, but I just didn't know what it was. And where I had that deadline of like, okay, my renewal is in 4 weeks, so I need to come up with this whole idea, and then ended up giving a 10-minute presentation on what Pink Panda is. The first week I went back, had no logo. Well, I had a logo that I'd drawn myself, which was shit, and was being done and having all the branding done. But yeah, literally I gave a 10 minutes on like, here's what this company is and what it's going to do and why it's in existence and how it helps businesses. And it's like, it was literally just stuff I'd like drawn out. Like,
but people would love seeing that, because people buy from people, and therefore people will love your journey. There are so many people that I've spoke to, like my first office, that I rented my first office of. That was like, oh my God, Kieran, it's lovely to see how you've grown. Because I remember, like, because we do a lot of paper, so getting the post in and stuff. So I used to run up to reception, see whether I'd got myself my first piece of post, and it's just like, and now you're getting a stack like that every day. So people see that journey and then buy into you because of those things, and see that you've come from. I mean, it will take time, but see you come from nothing.
Oh yeah, my first office was technically like, it was this like cupboard kind of thing in the house, and it was just like the shelving that we had with all the stuff. And I just like emptied out one of the shelves on there. It was like deep. It was kind of like wall racking or whatever. And I just put a chair into it, and it was just like the most uncomfortable thing in this little dingy den. And that was my first office. And
and clients don't care, but like some people, like a friend of mine, he transformed his business slightly and is now working from home. He goes, but I need a big office and big showroom. I was like, no, you don't. Clients don't care. How often do you have clients? How many clients are you going to lose because you don't have a showroom? No. He goes, maybe one. I was like, give a shit about that one. Let's work on the other 9 that are going to buy from you.
And like, it's definitely like something I've learned, because like with Pink Panda, I hot desk, and then anytime at the moment it's just like freelancers working with me on bits, and then I'm employing people like end of this year and into next year, finding people to come on full time. But like that, it's based on the hot desk office I'm at, like the whole thing of we haven't got anywhere to entertain clients. Well, I'm in a workspace. Shout out to the sponsor, actually, because we're sponsored by Dragon Code.
Okay, nice.
So the whole thing there is like, I need a nice boardroom to work with a client. All right, they got a boardroom. I just book it out for 2 hours, whatever. And my client comes in, and it doesn't make a difference to them. They get to sit in a nice boardroom, and then they go out, and I go back to my hot desk. And I come in each day, and it's like, if I need to work from home or want to work from home, I can work from home. And if I want to go in an office, wherever I need, I can just work around that. And I'm just paying for like a membership for a hot desk. And I can have a nice big boardroom, or a little cozy meeting room, or a podcast studio. Obviously, I've travelled to you, but like with that, it's just all there and available to just pick and choose as and when I need it.
So exactly.
Shout out Dragon.
Must be an hour in, aren't we?
Yeah, we are, an hour and 5 minutes. I was like, we're probably only like 15 minutes in. We're ages. Well, I mean, we've covered everything I wanted to say. What do you think people most misunderstand about business or being a business owner?
I think it depends on who's asking about that like in terms of who's judging you, I suppose. Because I'm forever sending like memes, for example, to business owner friends, and like, oh my God, I get that completely. When everyone thinks that you're avoiding the tax man and that you never do any work and you can go off and choose your hours and stuff, but they're not seeing all the graft that you've put in to get to that point. This is how we started the conversation. Whereas, I think that's probably one of the biggest misunderstandings, that it's easy, and that you're earning loads of money and you get to choose what you do all the time. And I think they don't see the fact that you never switch off. And actually, there's a bit of a mindset shift. Like, I never thought I was going to run a business. Not that I'm young. Well, I am youngish, but in terms of as young as I was when I first started. I can't remember where I was going with this. So I think that was it. When I go into other businesses now, and I go and say, go out for a meal somewhere, I'll sit there and think, right, okay, so there's that many tables in here. That's the size of the kitchen, so they probably can only do certain amount of covers and things like that. And I don't like the way that that person's had to go in and do that, and I'll look at ways to improve their business. So going back to the start of this conversation is you don't ever switch off. So I think that is quite taxing. So I find that I'm tired. And that's because I'm constantly thinking about different ways. Like even like my landlord, like who I doubt they'll watch this, but they might do. Nothing against you, but he's just not that type of person. But I look at the way he does things, and I'm like, why are you doing it like that? Well, if you did it like this, you'd earn more money, or you'd save money here, or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think that's quite taxing on a business owner, is to always think that. And whilst I appreciate you've got a choice, but it then, I think when you start your business and you're doing that already for your own business, you naturally want to do that for everything else.
Yeah.
And I do wonder sometimes whether that makes you a very boring person to talk to,
very
someone that's a non-business owner.
Yeah.
And I found that in my friendship circle is that I've built so much stronger relationships with my friends that own businesses or run businesses versus those that don't. And that's nothing against them. It's just I've got more in common. I talk about all those things.
I've got a couple of points on that because, like, definitely I'm fully there with you in terms of going into that. Your metaphor of going into the restaurant. I do it with like businesses I work with, so suppliers and such that I partner with, and constantly I'm just like frustrated. If I use something, I'll be frustrated by it, and then be like, right, if I can't find it, I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I've just got a list of businesses I'm going to build in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to build them because I want them to do this, and I'm like obsessing over the detail. Like all my guiding principles are pretty much based around efficiency.
Yeah.
And just how to do things the most effective way possible. So then I'm like, identify in businesses I work with where certain industries, I'm like, oh, if it was just centered around this, centered around that, and I could really solve this problem much better. I'm like, that's it, I'm going to build a business. And then I write up this whole business plan, and gradually I'm working through them. But the whole thing with friends, something I've found that I've done is I find that I have different best friends for different things. So I have like my best friend that never had a business, no intention of ever doing it or anything. We're very different in that regards, but our commonality that brought us together was our hobby, skateboarding.
Yeah.
And with that, like I hang out with him. I would never go to him with a business problem or like talking about my day in that sense. But hanging out with him, we're just two kids hanging around, playing on a plank of wood and going and having fun. And then like my brain just gets to obsess over something. Like I don't switch off. I just obsess over that thing. And I'm there skating and I'm trying to work out how to do whatever it is down a handrail or something. But it kind of like lets me revitalize from business, and I can go back refreshed. But then I have another best friend who is a business owner, and like we don't really hang out or see each other, but we're just always on the phone to each other every day, talking and just chatting. And then it's just like going through each other's problems and challenges and just being there for each other, talking through that stuff. And I have different best friends for different things where it's like I could never go to them for that, but it just becomes, instead of having like your best friend where you kind of have it as a kid, you just have your best friends that are like different people.
Yeah, for different areas of your life. Yeah, no, 100%. I resonate with that, definitely. So yeah.
Right, well, I've taken up loads of your time, but I've got the closing tradition on my podcast.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, if you could eradicate anything from this earth, what would it be?
Oh, that's difficult, actually. Just coming off slightly is because one of the things that frustrates me is we're all about eradicating disease, and I might get shot down and get cancelled for this. But in terms of, there is an element that we do need to die at some point.
Yeah.
And I see so many elderly people because of my job suffering because their life has been prolonged by medication and so forth. But
their existence.
Yeah, exactly.
Not their life.
Yeah, exactly. Their existence.
Yeah.
But is the quality of their life. So yeah, a lot of people say about like getting rid of disease, but I actually think it has its place, as horrible as that sounds. But I think for me, it would be probably one of those diseases that takes your life early. So like Alzheimer's, for example, is one of those things that's really horrible in that you're still alive, but your quality of life is perhaps maybe being reduced significantantly. Something along those lines.
Of course, the Will Writer thinks death is a great thing and disease is a great thing.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, Kieran, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Right, that's a wrap.